and it's yes, I was made to love her. I think it's some of them are saying that, and some of them aren't. It's not bass. It's going
wild.
such a great groove.
Oh, yeah. All right, welcome back to the In My Beach Boys Room podcast. I am Adam Schreiner, sitting here with Matthew Hartz. And as you saw, I'm sure from the title, we are getting into Wild Honey today. We're going to do the full album analysis. And prior to this, I had never listened to Wild Honey. So I had heard Darlin. Darlin is one of my favorite songs.
One of your favorites.
Still one of my favorite songs, even after going through all this. But I did love this album. So we're going to get into all that. If you're new to listening, Matthew is my Beach Boys educator. He has taken me on this journey throughout the whole Beach Boys career. And we have, at this point, analyzed all of the albums except for, what, 4?
Yeah.
I mean,
basically Friends in 2020, but we've got a couple others we're sneaking in there. That are,
yeah. And so we, that is what the first couple seasons are. This is our 19th episode in this season, which is substantially more than our other seasons, but
I don't think we knew what was going on at the beginning. Yeah. I mean, we had a plan at the beginning of season 3. We didn't know how long it was going to go. We didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is like, you probably could have broke this up into 2, but a lot of times podcasts do seasons because they need to take a break or something. And that's how we had done it in the past. But because our schedules have been so busy, there's kind of been like mini breaks in between these episodes. So 19 episodes, you're going to end with like 22 by the end of this thing. But is what it is. Happy to be doing it. So before we get any further into Wild Honey, you can follow Matthew. He's pretty basic when it comes to the social media stuff. He has Instagram. That's Matthew Hartz Music. You can find him on Facebook. Just look up Matthew Hartz. He's got a little banjo. He's a little kid holding a banjo. You can follow him on either one of those. That's really all he uses. And I
barely use those.
And then you can follow just us, obviously, on YouTube, any of your podcast platforms. If you could like, subscribe, do all those things that help us grow the podcast, we really appreciate it. Along those same lines, we do have a sponsorship program. I want to thank all our sponsors for sponsoring this podcast. Don't have anybody that wanted to be acknowledged by name on this one, so we're just going to do our blanket thank you and appreciation for those that did sponsor. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, if you'd like to sponsor, here's the link. Follow the description. In the description, you can find the link there, a little QR code. I'll make it easy for you. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, we do really appreciate it. And it helps making these episodes.
Yeah. And we're going to continue to get these episodes out quick within, I think we're on like a 2-week pace is kind of what we're going for. Every 2 weeks to finish this season out. We're going to try to stick to that the best that we can. And so after this one, we'll have the Friends episode, which a Friends is standalone, as we've
and then Stack of Tracks paired with Live in London, and then finally 2020.
2020, perfect. All right, so Wild Honey.
Wild Honey.
Well, like I said, first time I'd ever listened to Wild Honey, and it catapulted itself to one of my favorites.
Yeah, and which I kind of predicted.
As we have done this for 50 some episodes now, and you've gotten an idea of my taste and my preference. You good call on knowing that I would really like this album because it has all the stuff that I like about the Beach Boys. And one thing I was thinking about for me, and this is like definitely my preference. And so for me, when it comes to like what makes a great album is that when I can listen to it front to back, not wanting to skip a song. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so with that being said, although the music is fantastic and unbelievable in Smile and Pet Sounds, there are songs that I would skip, because of the, which we talk about in those episodes. And so I don't want to take anything away from there. Don't hear what I'm not saying. Those albums are great, but as far as like what makes a great album for me is one that every track I like. and which is why Sunflower is my favorite Beach Boys album, because I can listen to that straight through, not want to skip a single song, even the slow songs on that, which I'm not really fond of. Mm-hmm. And the same
in general, you're not fond of slow songs. You're fond of those.
I'm fond of those the slow songs on there. On this one, there's not really that. I mean, the slowest song, what
is
"Let the Wind Blow"?
Yeah,
and that, you know, and so that's, and I like that one. So, and so that's kind of, I had this realization while I was listening. It's like, okay, my idea of a great album is one that I can listen to without wanting to skip, and Wild Honey falls into that. So it immediately became a favorite album of mine. You know, I'll be honest, sometimes when I've listened to, not recently, but albums and this whole thing where it's like, I would listen to it and then I'd have to listen to it. This, I'm putting on because I want to listen to.
Right.
You know?
Same vibe as Sunflower.
Yeah.
Almost.
And it, you know what actually it made me do? It made me re-listen to Sunflower to see if like where I was like, do I like this more than something? No, Sunflower is my favorite still, but I had to, you know.
Wow, that's really cool.
I put Sunflower back on because I was like, all right, but Sunflower to me is just, for whatever reason. But you know, one thing that is similar is there songs, when I listened to Sunflower, I had moments where I was like, I can't believe this is the Beach Boys. I had no idea Beach Boys did music like this, and not maybe to that extent with this, but there were songs where I was like, I had no idea that the Beach Boys made these songs, you know? And so
just months after Smiley Smile,
which is crazy. I mean, it's the shift, you know, it's like you can absolutely feel the shift. So that's kind of my sentiment on the overall album. Like I said, the up-tempo kind of danceability of it, head bobbing, all that stuff that, you know, that does it for me. So, I just wanted to kind of get that out there.
I'm glad you did. I've really been holding off on asking you when we've been talking in between, because but I was getting the sense that
I almost text you, like I held off and I almost text you like, Wild Honey, man, like, all right. Here,
well, I could see you walking Nora and okay, he's gonna dig this thing. You know, it's upbeat. Are you done with your kind of general context? Because I was gonna get into my, you know, it's I go back to when I was first talking to David Sanger, who joined us on the Today episode. 35 years, the drummer with Asleep at the Wheel, great guy, big Beach Boy fan. And I was asking, he told me, his favorite albums are Today and Surf's Up, you know, and I said, you know, I mean, Pet Sounds and that stuff is kind of a gimme, you know, type of deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so part, you know, but I remember asking him about these albums, like, you know, Smiley Smile, Wild Honey, and Friends. And David, he said, for me, he says, that's, you know, Brian using the studio as this instrument is part of the deal of me loving the music. So these stripped down productions are not his cup of tea, right? But what I love about them, they're these stripped down things that still retain Brian's genius in small ways. They're really underground ways. And this album, more than anything, because it's on the surface simpler songs, and they are simpler songs, but all of his inversion tricks are there, like on steroids and stuff. You know, and all of the musical invention is there. It's just he chooses to represent it more simply with fewer instruments, and a lot of it's more blatant, the points he's trying to get across, right? You know?
And I'm excited for you to actually cover some of that, because there are moments where I might not, in the past, I might not understand, like, musically what's happening, but I can feel it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And there are moments here where it's like, it's blatant, but it's like, I don't know. It's not, I don't know. It's weird where it's like, I'm excited that to have you point this out to me, because I'm unsure of those moments.
Right. You want to know if there's something behind what you're feeling in those.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the magic of Brian's music, right? We say that it even does those things to folks who aren't in the know about music. You know, it's things that he does with his music from a from the mathematical standpoint, hits you in the soul, or something like that. Yeah. So, before I start talking about the Wild Honey album specifically, I do want to talk a little bit about context because, Smiley Smile, they record it in June. It gets released in September. But in between that time, in August, they do the famous trip to Hawaii. They record the album basically with the same engineer that did Smiley Smile, who was, I think he worked at Wally Hyder's studios. So those guys, they go over to Hawaii and they recorded that concert for a possible live album. Okay, Brian went with them. And this is some of the first sightings in Beach Boy world of Steve Desper, the famous engineer that came along and from Friends on, including Sunflower, which is his tour de forces, and and Surf's Upper. He's such a huge influence. So, number one, he comes into the picture, not in a huge way. I think it's just kind of as an auxiliary way, but he's in there. September, Brian's friend, Danny Honey, who he's known since 1965 and has been a close friend. He starts working with him and a couple of guys. They got a group called Redwood. He writes Darlin for them. Darlin's a rewrite of another tune, an earlier thing that he and Mike did, and we'll get into it when we talk about Darlin, but he wrote it for them. And he also started working on a tune called Time to Get Alone with them, which ends up on 2020. And this is the group that became Three Dog Night. And it's always said, wow, what if Brian would have gotten the deal on starting Three Dog Night, who they were one of the hugest things of the early 70s, Joy to the World. They're that Jeremiah was a bullfrog.
Sure, yeah.
You've heard that cut.
Oh, yeah.
There's lots of other great stuff, but that's probably the most known. But anyway, he was working with them, and at a certain point, Mike and Carl especially, and I think it was mainly Mike, they came and they said, you're not going to be doing this. We covered this in the other episodes. And so eventually, long story short on that is Brian doesn't get to work with Redwood anymore. They don't get Darlin and Time to Get Alone, but the Beach Boys get them. Because, and I'm actually happy about that because their versions of those songs are so great. But I wanted to put that in there. They do start recording Wild Honey in late September. In October, Many Moods of Murray Wilson comes out.
Yeah, what do we got
going on there? And that was, those are this is an album of Murray's that Brian actually helped him with. Nobody knew this for years, but the Beach Boys were more involved in that than we ever thought. Brian helped him with it, and Brian helped him with it quite a bit.
And so you didn't have me listen to that.
Well, no, because that's not a Beach Boy album.
It's
a Murray Wilson album. It's really weird that Capitol Records put that out. It's kind of because he was the dad of the Beach Boys.
And he's singing on it, and
it's instrumentals.
Oh, it's instrumentals.
And I think that there's he got a plumber to sing a couple of tunes. I've never heard whole. I've heard tunes from it. The thing is he at the time in the press he was, kind of like the Beach Boys are, kind of finished, and I'm gonna hope I can give them a little kick in the pants because they had the big good Pet Sounds Good Vibrations, and then the Collapse of Smile and Smiley Smile, and so he comes out. It's a real weird dynamic that's going on with this whole thing. They fired him in '64. But he's still a big part of their life, and that is something that's going on. And I don't know when it was recorded, but it got released in October. The big in October when they're doing some of the tracking for Wild Honey, a bass player named Ron Brown comes in and plays on I Was Made to Love Her, and he plays on Here Comes the Night, and I found out he's also on Darlin. His bass playing when I was a kid, I didn't know that's who it was. But to me, even though it's on only a few tunes, it really it gives a certain flavor to this album. And it's the Wild Honey album is considered their R&B album, or kind of their soul album, or Motown album.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, after I heard it, when I was a teenager, I heard things about there was a Motown bass player on Wild Honey. Specifically, I Was Made to Love Her. And I go, oh, well, that explains it. That really crazy, cool rhythmic bass line on there. And I thought it might be even the very famous James Jamerson, who is the king of Motown bass. And but it ends up, it's a protege of his. And the guy's name is Ron Brown. He's an African-American musician who was living in L.A. at the time. But guess what? He played shows with the Beach Boys in 1967. And so not only here's another example. I don't want to beat this to death, but the Lily White Beach Boys, he was the first augmenting touring member of their band, maybe outside string and horn players, but I'm not sure. He might have been the first extra guy they brought in. And he played a few shows with them in 67, and he made parts of Wild Honey with them. And to me, it's just a cool story. I'd heard the name before, but I needed to do some research when we got on this, and I was blown away.
Oh, really?
With what I found out. And really neat history and a life, a troubled life, you know. But
so he kind of went down a little rabbit hole when
researching
this, or
sounds to me like his whole life might have been a rabbit hole.
Yeah,
you know, he's just a brilliant musician. But so that's the Ron Brown story, and I just think it's a really cool aspect of Wild Honey, and him being on there. I knew, you know, there's some pretty slick bass playing in parts of the album. And so anyway, let's also, since we talked about him, let's talk about the basic band on here, it's back to a Carl and Brian situation, a lot of it. Carl's playing a lot of bass, Brian's playing a lot of the piano and the organ and some bass. Bruce is playing some bass and piano, and there's some organ, specifically Farfisa organ, which is a specific kind of little, some people think it sounds really cheesy, but it was a really hip sound, I think, at that time in the 60s. And so Bruce is doing that stuff. But it's basically a Beach Boy played out, you know, Al's playing some rhythm guitar on it and everything. They're not a lot of augmenting musicians. This again is kind of, to me, it's like the band getting together and just jamming and making a record, totally. You know, and an extension of Smiley Smile, but with more dimension. Okay. You know, some people say that it's similar. It's definitely got more instruments and production value and more going on in the arrangements than Smiley Smile, but it is kind of just a progression from that, and then it's still all very dry.
Interesting. See, I don't really feel that, actually. You know, it feels like a distinct difference to me from Smiley Smile.
Yeah, and I can see why it does, because it's the feel, but it's just because of the feel of it. It's still Brian and Carl beating these tracks up together over, you know, just laying down all the stuff, building the majority of the tracks, having other people come in and do the overdubs. But if you think of it from that aspect of it, it's kind of Brian and Carl putting this thing together, and then they go in and put their vocals on. It's you know, it's similar for sure. Yeah. But the vibe and the feel, therefore the sound of it, but it's the same funky piano. It's the same organ and spots.
Yeah,
it's I think it's, you know, we back to that singing stuff we were talking about back in Smiley Smile. It's like, I think what it is they're so good at changing style and context.
No doubt.
That's the thing that just blows me away, is to move from a style of music like Smiley Smile into this whole R&B bag that quickly.
Yeah.
And that seamlessly. Mind you, it's the Beach Boys' white soul R&B. You know, it's their version of it, but it's still a really cool deal. You know?
That was one thing I you know, with Aren't You Glad, I was just like, well, which we'll get into, but that was like where it's just like, what? Like, where did like this come from? But anyway, we'll wait.
So a little bit more context is in November, they around this time in the late 60s, maybe they started what they call their Thanksgiving tours. And so I think Ron Brown is still on these shows, but also, so this is 67. These are the first shows that Daryl Dragon, Captain Keyboards, come in. So he's the second guy. You know, we haven't even got to Ed Carter, my fave. He's coming quick. You know, but here's these first two guys that are brought into. I'm getting far away from the microphone again. You know, you got Ron Brown, and then Daryl Dragon comes in, and Daryl Dragon becomes a huge part of their story and is, you know, on so many of the recordings for these next few years, and of course on all the tours. And actually his brothers are both involved too. Won't get into that, but I did want to say that. And actually, I have a quote that I was going to read. Can you hang on while I go get that book?
Yeah. Go grab it.
I mentioned that Daryl's brothers were involved. They all come in via Bruce.
Okay.
They're friends of Bruce and great musician friends. The dad of the Dragon brothers was a Carmen Dragon, who was like a symphony conductor in LA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they really came by it honestly. And so Bruce first referred Daryl's older brother, Doug.
Okay.
Who was a great keyboard player. But he passed on the offer and recommended Daryl. And according to Daryl, the Beach Boys auditioned me. My elder brother, Doug, knew that he couldn't cut those charts. They're very sophisticated chords. They're not rhythm and blues, you know. They're classic songs. The songs from Pet Sounds and those kinds of things are very difficult to figure out. So I think they gave me a tape to learn the stuff, and I auditioned at a studio for Carl Wilson. I wasn't sure I was going to get the gig, but he hired me. But he told me, you really have to beat the piano to death when you play the Beach Boys stuff. So I learned how to do that.
Oh, cool.
But I thought
that's cool. Yeah.
Well, him, you know, saying my brother was more of an R&B blues type of guy, and he couldn't, you know, the Beach Boys. This is coming from sophisticated musicians.
That's what I was just about to say. That's no chump right there.
Yeah, exactly. A guy's been, you know. So I just had never seen that before. When I was researching, I thought that is very cool.
Yeah,
so,
and that was from
Daryl Dragon.
No, but the book that you're reading.
That's Ian Rustin and John Stebbins. John Stebbins is the guy who wrote the Real Beach Boy about Dennis Wilson and the Lost Beach Boy about David Marks. Okay. But he helped with this. This is a great reference book. So that's kind of the context of stuff. I guess the significant stuff that was going on musically, right, and besides all the other historical stuff that we're not going to beat to death.
Which I think is probably a good moment to talk about, that we do have the partner episode to this one from our first season. It's the same one as from the last episode. It's the Smiley Smile Wild Honey episode in season 1, I believe episode 9. We actually don't go too much into Wild Honey history context, but there is, I think it's maybe 10-15 minutes of that episode about that. So if you want to go listen to or watch the partner episode, that is that one. There will be a link in the description below if you want to go check that out. So I just thought that would be a good spot, since we were talking about the context and everything, to drop that in here.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, a couple other things about the record in general. It's a real return, and I mean real, because you look at the album credits on this baby, it's a Brian Wilson and Mike Love record. You know, it's a minus the I Was Made to Love Her, Stevie Wonder deal, and I think there's one other. What's the other spot where Mike doesn't get a credit? I'm trying to think. Might be the whole thing, but.
Is that the only cover? There's no other covers?
Yes. And I don't know if Mike gets credit on How She Boogalooed It. Okay. Yes, that's the only the only cover on the record is I Was Made to Love Her. So that thing kind of feels like a group thing too. It's Brian and Mike getting back. They're pounding this record out, Bruce is back and famously loves Wild Honey. Just thinks it's a great record, and he's doing a lot on it. Whereas Smiley Smile doesn't anywhere be found. He's don't know what he was thinking during Smiley Smile. Carl, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but the quote about this one was, Wild Honey was music for Brian to cool out by.
Right.
After the whole thing of Smile and then into Smiley Smile. I mean, yeah, that was a easier letting a sigh of relief out, but then it was really...
Now I'm chilling.
Yeah. And then doing
and you can,
something.
I think you can feel that. I think you can absolutely feel that in the record of just the fun aspect of the relaxed, like, almost carefree, there's like that I feel that in this.
And trying to get to that. And in the end of December is when they meet Maharishi and they start into that back. So that's where I get into Friends, and Friends is a positive, upbeat album too. The funny thing, all this is going on, and then I don't know if it's before Friends is released. Might be before Friends. That's when he first gets institutionalized. So even though he's making this happy music, I'm not sure what,
right,
at least we know he was trying,
yeah,
and Carl's basically at the helm. Yeah, I mean, no, Brian's a lot, Carl's guiding it, at this point, and, so it's, I don't know it's a vibe that's there for sure. I think that the bass work by Ron Brown, even though it's on 3 songs, I didn't know he was on Darlin. I like the sparse, inventive percussion on Wild Honey. Sometimes there's just a snare drum, sometimes there's just a kick drum or a hi-hat here, and almost, again, random how they decided to do those things. And then that funky piano and Brian and Carl building the tracks together. That to me is the whole album. And, just back to reiterating, it's kind of a Beach Boys R&B record.
Yeah.
Was released December 18th, US number 24. So an improvement over Smiley Smile, which was 41. And it also did number 7 in Britain.
Okay.
So this was, and then the Darlin single performed well, was top 20. So this was a little bit of a bounce back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Before the fall off the cliff with Friends.
Darlin during its time, Darlin during its time did decently well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And man, you talk about a tune that became a part of their landscape from this point forward.
Darlin was?
The concerts, it was a big favorite forever.
Yeah.
So I guess we could get into talking about the tunes now.
Okay.
They're probably ready.
Yeah. I'm ready, man. So, I mean, even from the beginning, Wild Honey, I mean, the let's go. Like, that's like, it's just from, at least for me, when I was like, I felt like from this first track, I was in a different world. Like I was in a different world from where we had just been. And that's why, like the comment of an extension of Smiley Smile, like I don't, that's why it doesn't feel like that to me.
And I get that completely.
Just because I feel like, I just feel like I was stepping into a whole different side of Beach Boys that I hadn't experienced before. And so
you just stepped out of a drug den into a party drug den.
Yeah, exactly. More my speed, but yeah, I just I love the jam, and so and this is one thing I noticed right away, and I don't know if this is even accurate to say, but this is where I feel like Carl. So that's Carl on Wild Honey.
Some people think it's a really strained vocal.
And so that's why I said I said it's like he's strained, but I like that a lot. And is this but he also does that in this album and other places too.
He's going for it, kind of like a soul singer would.
Is this the first time that he's really done that? Okay.
You got to think of it. This is 1967, Adam. His first, people didn't even acknowledge it, but I mean, the first lead was only a couple years before that. And he's saying God only knows the year. This is a guy that's just started his singing career, and he's not even, let's see, what is it? He's 20 years old.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And so, yeah, and he loved R&B. He was a big fan. That's a big reason that they went in this direction for this. And I think he was looking forward to singing this way.
Okay, so cool.
Doing that Stevie Wonder cover. And,
yeah, because that strain in his voice, it's like, gosh, I totally. It's just a totally new characteristic that I hadn't heard before, from all this other beautiful, and not to say that it's not beautiful, but like those Carl Wilson beautiful moments that God only knows and stuff like that. And so, I dig it.
The liners on the Twofers when it was re-released in the 90s, Brian, I think it's Brian that says he remembers watching Carl dancing around because this is most of it made in Brian's house. Again, he's dancing around my living room, just singing the vocal to Wild Honey was a remembrance for Brian to watch Carl going for that.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, those were the key moments for me in the song, but I'll let you take over.
I love the piano riff that's a really tough piano thing that gets it going.
So that's a tough one.
I mean tough in
as in
attitude.
Like attitude. Got it. Yeah.
There's a funky little bass riff that comes in kind of spot, and I think Bruce is playing bass on it possibly, and he's definitely playing the Farfisa organ. Mm-hmm. But this has got the theremin on it again. Mm-hmm. So you've had 3 albums, Pet Sounds with I Just Wasn't Made for These Time, then Good Vibrations, it's on Smile Inspired. So there's kind of a continuation of a theremin going on here. And you wonder if they were thinking, wow, it was such a big part of Good Vibrations, maybe we can make it work here or something. But I think this is might be the last real spot in the catalog.
Yeah.
Let me grab the guitar. It is a basic tune, but it's one of those things that if you don't, it's in G, and the opening thing is saying it's just a G in root position, but then you're going to go to C, and I hear people do the C without just keeping the G in the bottom. That's the 5 in the bass, his thing again, right? But it's just really a basic thing, but it makes all the difference in the world. The same bass note over all that. If I went to the all-out C chord, it would be that sound. And a lot of people would play it. Mama, I'm telling you, sure, but it's Mama, I'm telling you, sure. Bom, bom, bom. That's a big part of that. Don't want to beat that to death, folks. Dun, 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 dun. She's my girl, just back and forth. Then up to A minor, C, back and forth between those. Then D7, back to. I love that. That's not in there, but I want it. It's implied. Then in the bridge, they go to, I never thought about it this way, but it's Lonely Sea, Good Vibrations. Just a different kind of, with that organ going on. She's sweet. Oh, cool. Hang on, that A minor. Love it.
Oh man, that little Lonely Sea, Good Vibrations part, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I never knew, I never thought of that little progression in the middle being the same one as those, but it is.
Yeah, that was awesome seeing that like that. Oh man, yeah. Such a stomping
It's
jam,
a great
man.
tune. I mean, Mike was in Brian's house when they're, I think, making the record, and he took a jar of honey out that said Wild Honey, and name for the tune. And you know, the album cover is actually a piece of stained glass from inside of Brian's house.
Right. Which is such a cool, such a cool album cover.
Yeah. That and Smiley, you know, Smiley Smile and that together. Especially, I remember when the twofer came out, they looked so good together.
Yeah.
But there you go with old Wild Honey.
Okay. Aren't You Glad?
Mm.
So, I mean, I even wrote, you know, because I even wrote, is this a Beach Boys original? Because I wasn't sure, because it's just, you know, the whole Motown thing. I just, even after listening, I mean, cause I've almost listened to the entire Beach Boys catalog at this point. I'm almost there. 95% complete.
And this is one of my favorite songs in their catalog.
And it doesn't, I would not have thought it was them. I would not, if you would have told me that this was the Beach Boys after listening to all their songs, I still would have been like, are you kidding me? And so, I mean, it just has that, to it. And so who's producing this again?
Oh, Brian.
Brian's producing it?
And Carl.
Okay, because they're just, I don't know, it just felt very, very unique.
Well, it's like a swing tune. It's one that I've told you I've played in swing contexts a lot. It really does, parts of it, but almost the whole thing kind of lend itself to a good swing tune with a Beach Boys progression idea. I want to take this opportunity to talk about Sunshine Tomorrow, which is
I had a question about anyway, so go ahead.
This is the compilation that Alan Boyd and Mark Lynette put out. Primarily those guys put out, that covers all the stuff from Wild Honey and Smiley Smile. So it's 1967. So they got a lot of the outtakes and a lot of the stuff that weren't on those albums, which right now I wanted you to bring up. There is a really cool progression of Brian starting from a basic demo of Aren't You Glad, and then it progresses, and I want people to just be patient because I want to play quite a bit of this.
Okay.
And let people hear how Aren't You Glad developed.
Okay.
One, two, 3, 4.
You're not hearing it yet. That's related. He's getting there. Okay.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
Such crazy cool voicings and inversions there. We'll talk about that. That's that funky piano. And he's got tape, I think, on it, too, to make it staccato. And I think we'll just let it play a little bit longer. Now it gets into the real track. That was all demo stuff. Hang on.
You'll dig it. 2, 1, 2.
Here we go. No, yeah, there's the bass line in there too. Love it. I thought it got into the regular track too. Go ahead and cut it. When Sunshine Tomorrow came out, I don't know, I've listened to that cut repeatedly. You know, I love the tune anyway, but listening to it progress through those snippets until where he finally puts it together, right?
Yeah.
It's Brian and Mike again, you know. I love the lyrics, and I love the bounciness of the lyrics on this one too. Let's see. So it's actually it starts out. I'm going to play these when I'm playing with a bass player, like in a swing band. I tend to play these treble voicings here. Did you want to say something?
No.
Oh, I did.
Sorry, I'm very interested.
So
That's why my face.
I'm going to play like D6, and then we'll say this is to represent an A minor 7. It's pretty much the guitar part for the whole intro, and then finally to G. and then B minor, and back to that D6, and then A. So it's reprise there. And then you stay on that. And I love this, and then C, F7. Oh, and then. D, she glad now, darling, it's me, and tell me, do you know what I mean? Say, aren't you glad each day becomes something new? That thing is almost implied all through that whole chorus. That flat 7 thing after the G. And then... Love that song. I don't know if I explained enough of the chords. So G, B minor, and then that D6 to A minor 7 thing. And then we're going back and forth from, you could kind of play the full versions there. So a full D6 with a root in the bottom. And the same thing with the A minor 7. You say that. You say that and don't you know that there's so much this turns into C and F7. That chord's the magic. And then that's a G kind of pedaling to a 6 thing. Then C, F7, and then the same. And then that next part's almost like it's in D, D, C, B minor, and then G. Anyway, there's Aren't You Glad?
So when you say, just for us non-musicians, when you say implied, when you're like this note's implied or this is implied, like can you explain that in any way?
Okay, so this thing right that I was playing, they're pieces of chords, and I can define them several different in different ways. You know, not this. I could definitely this one. I could not call it A minor 7. I could call it like a C with a D in the bottom of it is what it sounds like in its full. But
so when you say it's implied, meaning that is that what's actually being played?
God, I wonder what context I just used implied with you on.
Well, you did it on the other side. You did it on the on Wild Honey as well, where you said this is almost implied here.
I wonder what part of that it was.
Just keep that in mind.
Okay, I will.
Keep that in mind, and if it comes up again, then maybe we can explain it at that point.
That sounds
okay?
like a deal, Adam.
Okay, sounds good. But
the horns, and there's strings on here too. So there's quite a few musicians on Aren't You Glad compared to the rest of Wild Honey.
Okay, so the reason why I asked about who produced it is because the only thing that I felt was an interesting choice was when it would get to the chorus, it almost like got quieter, like more full but quieter. And so that was the only part that I felt like I wanted it to be a little more power in that. And I guess, I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. And what one of the things they couldn't believe about Smiley Smile is that they mixed it and were able to get levels as close as they were able to do it in the manner in which they mixed Smiley Smile. And so kind of the same things maybe going on here, and maybe in spots they didn't get as lucky.
Oh,
in matching.
okay.
It wasn't as easy as it is, sometimes there were issues like that. And it meant, if they were going to try to get into a subtlety like that, or if they could fix a subtlety like that, maybe it's, I don't know. I'm hypothesizing here, but I don't know if that was like intentional.
Intentional. Got it. Okay.
Does that, is the only thing that I would say about
that. Got it. Okay. So then I Was Made to Love Her, as we had said, great cover. fits so well with this, obviously, with this style of the album. You know, and I went and I listened to the Stevie Wonder version just because I'd heard it, but it'd been a while. And you know, this definitely, they throw the little Beach Boys flavor on it in this, which is awesome. I love when they do that. And they didn't change it too much. They kept, you know, like kept Beach Boy fight it, if you will, but then also kept the original part of it that has that Motown-y feel and all that.
They have an extended version of it on Sunshine Tomorrow. There's another middle section that Carl cut out.
Interesting.
Of the final deal. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And some stuff there. But he was, you know, he was I think he was already a big Steve. They had already played shows with Stevie Wonder by this time, you know, and so I don't know what the level of knowing each other was, but Carl was definitely a fan. One of the funny things about this tune, again, I was 9 years old, I think, when I heard it, but that middle or the background vocal, I would have swore to God for 20 years until maybe I heard the twofer that they were saying, hey, you son of a bitch. Hey, I do want to play
this one.
First of all, I want, you're going to hear Ron Brown's amazing bass work right out of the gate. And this is one I taught. You remember my bass student, Sam Ashby? I remember him learning this and a bunch of stuff off here, but I've never really been able to get, it's hard for me to hear exactly what Ron's doing on these lines because it's so fast.
Oh, really? Okay,
yeah.
cool.
And, but I do want people to listen to that background vocal.
And this is all our stuff that we're playing is the remastered version.
Okay, so this is the stereo version of Wild Honey, you guys, not mono.
Which is your preference, but I can't get the mono easily.
Right.
So here's just the remastered stereo version.
And it's, yes, I was made to love her. I think some of them are saying that and some of them aren't. It's not bass. It's going
wild.
Such a great groove.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think? So go ahead and cut it.
I hear you, and I love hearing what people hear. You know, I just saw something else where someone heard a song totally different than what the lyrics actually are.
Mm-hmm.
But then you hear what you're like, oh, I can hear both. I can,
there are other people that have heard that my close listening. It's another one of those inside joke type things that they didn't want to make too blatant. I think somebody is saying that.
Oh, okay.
I think that somebody is saying that. I think the rest of them are saying, yes, I was made to love her. And yes, son of a bitch. I think that they're both in those things.
And to that point, there are a moment that when you first hear it, it definitely seems like that's what they're saying, but then later it sounds more like what they're actually claiming that they're saying. So
let me see if I can. That bass line is. And the chords underneath that are F, and then B flat minor, E flat, and then D flat, E flat. Yeah. That's kind of the Ceylon Sailor progression. It's in Catch a Wave, but this is Stevie Wonder's song, so it doesn't even relate.
Right.
But it kills me, man.
Yeah, it's rightfully so. So move on.
Yeah.
Country Air.
Mm-hmm.
there's just something about the instruments on this one that I really liked. Like when the music slows down, I just think it's so cool how the music slows down on this one. And there's nothing like, I mean, the lyrics are pretty repetitive, so obviously there's not a lot there. But I mean, if it didn't have this little cool aspect, I don't know. This song probably I wouldn't like. This would have probably been the one song on the album that I was like, but because it has that kind of cool slow down moment, that's what I like.
Well, Country Air is kind of like a developed chant from Smile.
Okay.
And tell me if we don't have Barnyard in there with a couple of roosters and is it Barnyard Light? Is it a more accessible commercial?
Diet Barnyard.
But the music in it is nice. It's not real difficult. But it's soothing. It's it's definitely the closest thing to like that when I call it Brian's mantra music on this particular album. That would be it. It's just, I always think of it as kind of almost a more developed chant. So it starts with B minor, F sharp 7, and then D, 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 G, 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 but kind of keeping the same bass note. Now to F sharp 7, and then to G again. Kind of back and forth like a dun. Get a breath of that country air, breathe it everywhere. And typical kind of some tunes Brian was writing, or that's in a style that he would revisit in different ways. But definitely a cool tune. I love the organ note. Even on when they reissued it in the early 90s, in the liners, they said, sorry folks, we can't get that out of there. That's on the that's on the master. It was something that has been there and can't be got rid of. Oh, if we want to hear Brian and the Rooster at the end of it, our Barnyard Light, but then right before it, we hear that organ note trying to bust through.
All right, so we're going to just scrub through a little bit here. Maybe. There we go. All right, it's like right here.
Yeah, you can hear a little bit of that. Just that little sizzle. We've got whistle, whistle-ins in there too, from Rise Up, Rudy the Rooster, and Brian into the roof. Kind of like that melding of those two things. As a matter of fact, in Rolling Stone, when they did go ahead and cut it, they did a review of Wild. They said something about Carl rhyming with the rooster at the end of that, but I think it's Brian.
Wow.
Country Air.
Country there.
And then gets into one of my favorite things on the record.
This is probably the attitude. I mean, kind of the attitude of this whole album kind of is different, but this song specifically, the attitude of the music matches the lyrics so well in this one. From all the different parts of it that, unlike Vegetables, where it's like you have these like, where are these goofy lyrics coming from? You know what I mean? Like this, it's like, okay, I feel this, like the attitude behind what you're saying, it matches so well with what is being played. And so I listened to, I even looked up the lyric, like this one, I got deep into this one of like looking at the lyrics and, just like the back and forth between the two different parts of the song.
Now, whereas a lot of these things, we talked about Smiley Smile, they made those things in pieces, and I think this one I thought was made in pieces, but I think they made the track straight through on it. I'm not sure. I better not say that, but I kind of want to say it.
Yeah.
It's this one would be a good example, but there's some others. Is there any of that, what I call effeminate thing hitting you about this album? Because there's some really high stuff from Brian. Some of that stuff that rings to me of some of the same stuff from Smiley Smile, not just done in a humor based. Well, it might be. You know what I mean? There might be a little bit of that to him, even doing it in Wild Honey.
Yeah, now that you say
kind
that,
of mocking.
I see that.
bit.
It doesn't feel as joking in this.
Okay.
It
Gotcha,
doesn't feel as
gotcha.
like they're joking, like in that. I can't remember what the name of the song of Smiley Smile when that happens, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. I definitely can see that. But this felt more like, because it just, I don't know, kind of fits a little more, where it just seemed a little unnecessary, I guess, in what I talked about in the last episode.
I got you. I like that too. I call this thing a swing/rocker, because the first part of it is just a little swing tune, and it's got, I don't know if they're playing this, but it's a B flat seventh with a sharp 5, not an augmented chord, a dominant chord with a sharp 5. When I see my baby to E flat, when I see my little girl, there's at least one instrument shading that chord or implying that chord. I feel that chord in there. I'm not quite sure that's what the guitar is doing, but there's another note in the arrangement that makes me feel like this chord is implied.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, there we go.
There it is.
Okay, so when I see my baby real straight, dun 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 dun, then this chord also, it makes me think of, you got to go forward a couple of decades. Oh, the great big river goes on and on. On Brian's solo album, Rio Grande has that same funky chord, that seventh with a sharp 5 in it.
Okay.
Anyway, had to get that in there.
Yeah.
So I'll back to it. B flat 7 with a sharp 5. I see my E flat. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Then A flat, F minor. Thing or two, and then do it right, bam. That's the good one. I love that. That's all over. Dun, 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 dun. Bum, 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 bum. So I love that in there, but that's just basically over an E flat and a B flat.
Yeah.
And it does two sections of the songs, so it feels like a swing tune, a straight dun 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 dun, and then dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Oh yeah. No, and that's just like when you go into that, do it right, baby, or whatever. Is that what they say?
Do it right, baby.
Yeah. That is just like that. That's what I mean. Like, that is what he's saying with what is being played is just like, yes, yeah.
And
driving
they're
home.
jamming it to
Yeah.
the feel of it is just so great.
Yeah. So, and then so that actually,
Inside one.
and that's one of my favorites on the album. That one that's became one of my favorites. Like I said, I went on a little deep dive of that one. And then we get to Darlin, which was my favorite when we started.
Wow.
Still my favorite. I don't know really what else to say because I've listened to this one so much. One thing that I did, I don't know how it popped up, but it did pop up from, and this is what I was going to ask you, is on YouTube, that 1967, like that.
Sunshine Tomorrow?
Sunshine that
Tomorrow.
popped up, and it was just the vocals of
Oh,
Darlin.
cool,
And I
yeah.
never listened to
Very
that.
cool.
And just, man, I mean, I already love the vocals, but when you take away the instruments, God,
And you hear, yeah.
Wow. So I got to listen to that a couple times. So I see why I probably would like that album
Oh,
too.
I think you would
probably
really,
would.
knowing how much you're liking Wild Honey, honey especially, yeah. So this is a tune that Brian and Mike wrote in 1963 called "Thinking About You, Baby." There was an artist I think her stage name was Sharon Marie. I don't know, can't remember the real name of that gal. But she put out a single with that, and it's basically the same tune. Spring put "Thinking About You, Baby" on the Spring album in '72, not Darlin, but back to the original "Thinking About You, Baby." We need to. I need to play that for you. I should have thought to have you bring that up so you could hear that, what the original Darlin was like. You want to?
I'll try real quick. We might have to cut that because that might have a copyright issue since that's not the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
But
we can say we played it.
we could say, yeah. And so we're going to try. But if there's a little cut space here, it's because we had to cut that. But that was the so that was a Sharon Marie, which was the original.
That was in 1963. And you can hear Brian singing background on it.
And then the Spring version
came out in 1972.
And it matches that version.
It's that tune.
Okay.
It's "Thinking About You, Baby" as opposed to Darlin.
Okay. Which, obviously has that same good feel, but taking out that Darlin part, I mean, that's like that's the whole magic of the song,
right.
So, but yeah, I'm glad we actually brought that up.
And this is one I really want to talk about the music on. Number one, it's so cool. And, there's one part in it that before I started really digging into it, I've always just kind of faked it when I've got to that part. It's the little riff that they play right before they start the verses and everything like that. So I'm going to get to it, but it's in B. And I like this second chord as being like a B sus4. And then G sharp minor 7. C sharp, and then we're going to B with an F sharp in the bass, and then straight up F sharp, and then let's see, that's C sharp minor with G sharp in the bass, and then right here, okay, so the bass line is this. The guitar part is this. And if we do all the chords down here, I think what's really being implied is something like this. The basics of it is this. Which is just E, A, A, E, A, E, A. Let's... And then going to the F sharp, we're in B, so the A chord is the flat 7, the E is the 4, and so we're kind of playing with those things. But this whole thing, just the complexity of this little thing, and if we're doing a full version of that with the bass note up, I came up with this. And then the guitar all over the side. That's just a crazy little spot that I've always loved, and I needed to go through and really get that like I hadn't got it.
I was lost in the best way right there.
So we after that part we're in B but the 2, so C sharp minor. No, we have words to say. F sharp augmented, and then that's a B in first inversion. Back to the augmented chord. Again, these are rare in pop music. Back to that B, and then G sharp 7 sets up to C sharp minor 7, F sharp. Keep digging it dark, you're dark, you're so fine. That's cool. A great tune.
So cool. God, love that one.
Thing.
Man. All right.
I don't know what. Yeah, and Carl, I love him singing it. I always loved him singing it live.
That's what I mean with when I got to listen to just the vocals. Man, I was just like, God, just so good. I love Just Wants to See You.
Yes. And tell me, this isn't She's Going Bald light.
Yeah. I can see that.
And I remember, I think I was telling you in that Wild Honey episode in this first season that I was 9, 10 years old, and some of these things hit me kind of weird, you know.
Yeah.
Like the thing is, love just wants to see you in the nude.
Out of nowhere, you know, like you know, it's just like you know,
well, it's
implied, and then explicit.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish you were here to help me dry the dishes and bake me a pie. You had a way of making it come alive. This other, but it's. I don't know if this is the first. I shouldn't say that, but it's definitely more of what we get the next year with Busy Doing Nothing on Friends. But this is kind of what I call Brian's slice of life tune.
Oh, okay.
Tunes. He's kind of. I don't know if it's really a snapshot on his, but it could be.
Yeah.
It's like
I
giving you a look at his daily routine.
Totally. Is there like, the guitar seemed, is there like a special type of guitar being used?
Well, they go from the first part of it, which I think Al's playing the rhythm part on the first part, is just a basic rhythm part. But then in the middle, they get into an arpeggiated thing when it switches keys that sounds like it could be even a finger. It's arpeggio. It's a broken chord thing. You want me to go through it?
Yeah,
real quick,
yeah, that'd be awesome.
So again, in B, coming out of Darlin, which was in B, but it starts on the 2 major, which is non-diatonic, up and go to F sharp, and knock on da 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 da. I think a little of this and F sharp da 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 da. Now we're gonna switch keys to F sharp, and
I love this part.
That's what I'm just trying to approximate it with the pick right there, but it's just breaking them up, right? Instead of strumming the chord, I'm just
got it.
Those chords. Let's see. So we've got F sharp 7, and then B to the flat 7 chord, which is a E7, the magic one. So, it's not too late. Let's play the second part. I like this. It's not too late. Or it was saying, hey, F sharp. They go back. And then I'd love, just up to a G sharp minor 7. Love just wants to see you. I'd love just wants to see you. I'd love just wants to see you in the nude. And they continue that cool guitar part through the. I didn't know what those things were, but I loved that guitar part when I was little. I felt like I was swimming.
Oh, yeah,
I felt like I was swimming. It was so beautiful and dreamy.
Yep, all those things.
It shades some of the guitar parts coming up in Friends, and then Sunflower, so I think some of the first ideas for those records are floated in here.
Yeah.
Great tune. Here Comes the Night.
Here Comes the Night.
So this is the original version of the disco
from
thing.
The marathon of a song.
Right.
That they
which
play,
I love this tune on Wild Honey. I'm not the disco version fan at all.
Yeah. I re-listened to that one just because I wanted to hear it again. And I don't mind the disco version, but this is just that raw, like this is what the song, I think this is what the song was meant to be. They took it and like remixed it and reused it. But this is really, really what it was meant to be. At first, actually, I wasn't that aside. When I first did my first run through, I was like, yeah, this might be my least favorite song on the album. Mm-hmm. But then it just totally grew on me to then, all of a sudden it was, it just became one of my one of my favorites. So I did think it was interesting that they decided to turn this into that version. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'll let you take it from here just because there's, like I said, the biggest thing for me was I didn't like it at first, but it was one of those songs that grew on me, and now I love it.
So this is one of the other tunes. Oh, but this is the other tune that Ron Brown's playing bass on. So it's got a sick little bass riff in it. Ba-doom, da-doom, doom, doom, doom. That's, as a matter of fact, put on the very first to Here Comes the Night, because it's right out of the gate.
Just
just a sick little
just
man.
Murders it right away.
The cool thing is, so we got. So this is it's out of tune guitar. This guitar stays perpetually out of tune. Is the only problem. But this is another one of those tunes where it's just little things that Brian's doing. He's playing, and instead of it's a kind of a suspended thing on the front where it's going C, C, F, F, C, but keeping the C in the bottom. There's the bass. Now the bass does this. So the guitars go. So they've got the F to C change. The bass doesn't. That creates this. That implies this if I'm playing the guitar solo. Or hear that?
Yeah.
Here comes the F7, then a C minor in second inversion, and then the A flat 7. Hold me, squeeze me, don't ever. That's a funky progression right there. So there's Here Comes the Night.
Just jams.
It's a cool tune.
Yeah.
And some neat musical ideas in there, for sure.
So then the only real slow song, and this, I love it. I like this one.
Then this is the one that Carl turned it. He, like in the early 70s, this was a concert. It's on the In Concert album. And it was during the early 70s when they were the pretty hard rockin' band. Let the Wind Blow was a big part of the concert scene back then. But you know how I always talk about Brian and his waltzes at a certain point, right?
Yeah.
First, this is the... I want to say it's the first one, and coming up, friends, in 2020, you're going to get a whole bunch more. It's when he starts getting into his waltz writing bag. And again, just like augmented chords, waltzes are not popular in popular music.
Yeah.
Or, what a normal interpretation of that is. It's just, it's 3/4 time. And he got obsessed with it, and it's a neat way to write. It's a little different way to write and sets up things differently, and so he got into a bag, right?
Yeah.
Now this is not Ron Brown, and it's Brian's funky left hand, his bass line on this. I think Carl is playing on there, but this is they set it up by playing a G flat chord for boom, doom, doom, 1, 2, 3, waltz, 2, 3, 1, 2, then to A flat, which is the key. Down, down, then we've got a D flat 7 with the 7 in the bottom, and then it's full on D flat, and then up to the E flat bass note. I think is how. But I'm trying to. I've never played the bass line before, but I think it's a. So, something like that, but the changes, let the wind blow, and then to that D flat 7, and then straight up D flat. It's a crazy deal. Then E flat minor, dun dun dun, B flat minor, dun dun dun.
Best part, yeah.
Do, 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 do. It's just a beautiful progression.
Yeah.
Beautiful tune.
Yeah. Did you want me to play any of that one?
Yeah, play the first part of it. Let the wind blow.
Oh, weird.
Let the grass grow. But don't let it go. Crazy. Don't take her out of my life. So that gives them a taste of.
No, and having you, just kind of gesture what's going on there, even kind of, wow, it is crazy. There's, wild stuff going on.
Then you get into the only this is the other tune that Mike, I don't think, wrote. This is accredited to Bruce and Al and Carl, maybe Mike. I don't know, but definitely no Brian.
How She Boogalooed It.
How She Boogalooed It.
So, Matthew, what's Boogalooed It? What's Boogalooed? It's that.
Yeah,
and that kind of sounds familiar.
Oh, that's a real common
Okay,
rock
that's what
sound.
I was
And
wondering.
they're kind of, playing off that power chord thing and yeah, I've always had fun with it. People have dogged it over the years, but I think it's a cool rockin' tune.
Yeah, I liked it. It didn't
It was
seem
just
very,
in the spirit, the group spirit without Brian, and it's got some cool musical things going on in it, but nothing real, out of this world. But it's just a fun little rocker.
Fun.
And then they did it live at around this time, and the live versions are great too.
I'm sure.
So
I could see that.
but nobody knew what it was
Right.
when they were doing it.
Yeah.
Because it was just an obscure track off Wild Honey. But I love the spirit of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's Carl. People say, "Is that Al singing?" And I really do think it's Carl. Some of that stuff sounds like Carl sped up a little bit, with tape speed stuff. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But cool tune.
Yeah. No, I didn't have it just I had fun head bobbing song, nothing too specific. Other than I just didn't know if that chord progression or whatever, if that was
Bruce's Farfisa organ part in it. Yeah, that little the Chuck, it's just a Chuck Berry
type
thing.
deal.
Yeah. Play on that just to
Got it. Mama Says, I mean,
what do you know about Mama Says, Adam? I said it was going to happen.
Yeah, and so I mean, I have Smiley ? Vegetables ?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There was an eat a lot, sleep a lot section in the Smile vegetables, and
Okay.
that's where this comes
Got
from.
it.
It's just that section of vegetables.
Yeah, no, and that's because just beautiful, and it even kind of has a little bob to it.
Yeah, it's got a feel to it, and they're doing all kinds of different little rhythms and different stylings on the same deal. It's just kind of doing vocal gymnastics, and one part of it is a little bit off pitch because some of these things were not sung straight through. I think, a little bit of it spliced in. So there's one, eat a lot, sleep a lot, brush 'em. That one that's drug out. I listen to that and I think, yeah, just a smidgen off. And then the next one right back in tune.
Yeah. And this was the one that was a little more blatantly, obviously, pulled, where the other, all the other ones that you kind of like, this isn't diet, right? This is a straight, I'm sorry, light. Like, how you said, like, this is Barnyard Light.
Well, this was recorded for Wild Honey. Yeah, it is, because it got completely taken out of the context of Vegetables and just got set by itself.
So it is. So everything. So it really is like these little moments of Smile light.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, this is not. Whereas in Vegetables and Smiley Smile, they actually took actual Smile tapes and put it on the end of stuff they did. But this is not. It was done during Smile, but they didn't pull the Smile tapes. They just redid that for Wild Honey.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
Sense.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
There you go.
Fun, man. Loved this one. Loved this album. This is, and so
we're almost there.
I know we are approaching the finish line, light at the end of the tunnel. About Friends. So, am I going to feel another shift in Friends?
Oh my gosh, yes! And I'm going to set you up a little bit. Like I said, at the end of Wild Honey got released in the middle of December, and in the end of December, the Beach Boys played that concert in Paris, where the Beatles were there, and they kind of got the Beach Boys hooked up with the Maharishi. And so that's why Friends is the meditation album, as they all had gotten into it, been introduced to it. Friends is a lot different in that they do bring in some of the old session musicians and a lot of jazzers. Jim Gordon's on the drums, I think a lot on Friends, but a lot of you'll see, it's a more polished feel. It's a whole different feel from Wild Honey. It's a jazzy feel.
And I think I did. So I believe I listened to Friends last. I can't, unlike Wild Honey, which I had not listened to before. I think when we did the Friends meditation episode, I think I did listen to it, but I didn't listen to it with a critical ear. Yeah, I just listened to it as like walking my dog or have it on in the background, which is very different. Mm-hmm. That's good on the subconscious level, but very different when you sit down with and lock in with, a piece of paper and, and a pencil and take notes on things that stick out to you. So, that some memory might be, might spark some memory of some subconscious stuff that I did absorb, but, that will be what we go over in the next episode. And, if everything goes according to plan, it'll be 2 weeks from this episode. We're going to try to stay on that pace for you guys as we finish this season out. So hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks when we're going to discuss the Friends episode. Thank you so much, everybody, for supporting, liking, doing all that stuff. Thank you.